one. We don't. Nigeria is not one, and it can never be one. We are different nations tied together by force.
So nothing says that we must be one country. Nothing. It's not sacrosanct that we must be one country. If in being one country you have all the killings you have in Jos, in Abuja, everywhere, what's the point being one country?
As the day goes by, it is beginning to dawn on us that this whole estate called Nigeria is a charade. Few oligarchies have put this country in their pocket and they are beginning to milk us dry, enslave this country and enslave the people. Whether we want to stay in this country or we want to leave, as ethnic nationality, as a region, it is our right to say so and to make every effort within the ambit of international law to ensure that we live.
We don't want to be part of Nigeria anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's not working for us.
So who made
our mineral resources.
So who made Nigeria today? Nigeria today. Who made it?
Who made it Nigeria? It's British. That's why we are.
Oh, England.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amalgamated the north and the south for economic reasons.
Wow.
In 1914.
Only economic reason. That's horrendous.
So now we want our nation. We don't want to be Nigeria anymore. Let individual go.
The real problem of Nigeria are Northerners. Northerners, Fulani, Hausa are the problem of Nigeria. They don't want our Nigerian progress. If they are not the one in power, then nobody can do it. It's only them that can do it. If you say you deprive Igbo people from having what is supposed to be theirs, allow them to go for their Biafra.
I just found out something astonishing about the origin of Nigeria that shocked the hell out of me. Nigeria was never meant to be a country. It was something else entirely.
Every 1st of October, my country celebrates independence.
Okay.
But how independent is our independence? Now, let's look at the type of independence that we have.
There's nothing to show.
Now, to start with, Nigeria was not even structured to be a country in the first place.
Hell.
Nigeria was established due to British business interests.
Welcome back to Local Journal, my people. No be small thing they happen for inside this country. As many regions don't they come out, they talk, say they want their own separate country. Say they don't understand Nigeria and they won't go. Plenty people don't they talk, say this country, they no create them to be one. Say God no create this country called Nigeria to be one. Them talk saying that British now forcefully join us together so that they go use them for their own business purpose. Una when no understand history, make una know now British now then join us together. Nigeria no be one, now it be at all. And Nigeria has never been one. Even till today as we they talk to una like this. And una know say if they join people where we say they get different ideology together, that union no go feel last because their ideology is different. The north and the south they get two different ideology. No be the same ideology they get at all. And now the reason why we say them no go fit dey as one country now be that. Una know say all these politicians and all these big men where they benefit from this forceful unity, then go try everything where they go fit do within their power so that they go fit keep this country as one. But the thing we say, is Nigeria really one? Inside this video like this, plenty people from different regions, they don't come out, they talk plenty things on top this matter. All of them, they agitate for their own country. Then they talk, say they don't tire for this country. Say Nigeria, they no create them to be one. Them talk plenty things for inside the video. And I go play them for una. Una go listen to waiting and talk for inside the video. And for inside this same video, una will be say una no understand the true history of Nigeria and waiting carry Nigeria come where it did today. The whole story dey inside this video too. Una go know how they take forcefully bring Nigeria together. How these white people and the British they forcefully join Nigeria together so that they go use them as their own business enterprise so that they go feed and make money. And the reason why they set up this enterprise where they call Nigeria be that. And until today like this, that enterprise where they call Nigeria is still they give British people money. So if you want to know all this one, you will got to watch the video go the end so that you go get the real history of how these people take join us forcefully together. But before I start to play the video, if today might be the first time when you visit our channel, make you like, make you share, and make you subscribe to our channel. So make you now watch the video.
It's very clear. We made a declaration saying that it's too late for restructuring in Nigeria. You will remember in 1962 there was a massive problem in Nigeria when Awolowo was arrested. Our people talked to us. There was crisis for over 4 years that led to the coup. there was a Yoruba meeting of elders called the Yoruba Leaders of Thought. We relented. The thing continued. Yoruba has continued to lose ground since that time. In 1993, there was the annulment of the June 12 election. Shiju Ade, the former Oni, spoke and said Yoruba should go ahead and conduct an election. We did. It led to nothing. The same thing happened in 1998, just before the handover to the democratic elected government. Yoruba did not want to go for anything like Nigeria again. But then it failed. Look at where we are. Yoruba has been losing ground since 1914. And we are just tired. We are done for restructuring. It's too late for restructuring in Nigeria. It's too late for sovereign national conference. It's too late for resource control. What we want now is Oduduwa Republic. And we are very categorical about that. We have made that very clear. We have made declarations. And we are very serious about our demands. Every region just go to its own tent. Yoruba wants to be on its own because the problem that Yoruba has is Nigeria. Nigeria is the problem, is the impediment to Yoruba development. Is the impediment to Oduduwa development. Without Nigeria, we won't be where we are. 1960, we were far ahead of South Korea and North Korea. We were far ahead of China even. We had television before France. We had radio before South Africa. Now look at where we are today. I think it's a shame that even any Yoruba man can be talking about restructuring at this point in time. What are we restructuring? This country that is already shot to pieces? I don't think that's what we want. But they are always talking about giving Nigeria a chance. The patience of Yoruba with Nigeria has come to an end.
I don't mean to be rude. I don't want to be rude to anybody, and I don't want to disrespect anybody, and I don't want to insult anybody. What I'm saying is that is the real truth. The real truth. The real problem of Nigeria. The real problem of Nigeria are Northerners. Northerners, Fulani, Hausa are the problem of Nigeria. They don't want our Nigerian progress. If they are not the one in power, then nobody can do it. It's only them that can do it. If you say you deprive Igbo people from having what is supposed to be theirs, allow them to go for their Biafra. If you say Yoruba people are not competent, they cannot rule Nigeria, allow them to go. Then we, the Northerners, should just stay and rule ourselves. If we kill ourselves, that's our business. You cannot say no, because Igbos, you think Igbos are thieves, Igbos are wicked, Igbos are this, they are that, they are this. There is no way that there's not the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if you cannot help the Igbos, allow them to go. If you cannot carry Yorubas, if you don't want them to rule you, allow them to go. Then we, the Northerners, will rule ourselves. If it's going to be better. We are one Nigeria, so we want the best for Nigeria. So we should look at where we are going wrong so that we can perfect it.
Question number one. So, in Nigeria, do we want to be one? It's an assumption that we want to be. It's a terribly big and wrong assumption, because when I went to Croatia, Croatia was part of the 6 countries that formed Yugoslavia. Right now they're doing very well. Macedonia is doing very well. Slovenia is doing very well. Slovakia is doing very well. So nothing says that we must be one country. Nothing. It's not sacrosanct that we must be one country. If in being one country you have all the killings you have in Jos, in Abuja, everywhere, what's the point being one country? So that's why, in looking at President Tinubu's governance program, I would remind him of a structural engineer who says, I can't build this house, I can't build Nigeria on the basis of a weak governance structure. It is the most important and fundamental process if you want the country to grow. So Nigeria's governance structure is very weak. The first is, any nation not at peace, and I always like to use the analogy of marriage. If, for instance, every day you get up and you and your wife are fighting, you cannot have peace, and you cannot think about how to develop. So the first thing we have to do in Nigeria is we have to organize peace. Because if we don't organize peace and security, you can't have good governance. So that is the step number one. And I also made the point at the lecture that to continue to do the same thing with the same result is a mistake. We cannot resolve our problem by military solution. It will not happen. Quote me. If we continue on this path to deploy the military, deploy resources, and I don't even know how much has been spent by the military in acquiring armaments, we can't win. And the simple reason is you don't use military solutions for what is called irregular warfare. Military option will not give Nigeria peace. Rather, what you need is to go back and say, before 1914, who were the owners of Nigeria? When you invite those who were owners of Nigeria, Benin Kingdom in the Guinness Book of Records has the largest man-made structure in the world. The wall they built, bigger than the Chinese wall. People don't know this. So that is an extremely old empire. And the man who sits on that throne, the Oba, controls a humongous amount of political power. Then you count the emirs, you count my own OB, yet you exclude them from the process of development. Is a huge error. It's a huge error. So this is what we need to do. We need to bring in all these guys. We need to bring in Ohaneze, Pandef, Arewa, Afenifere. These are the people that will shape Nigeria and give us political peace for development. So that's the first point on governance.
We don't break. Nigeria is not one, and it can never be one. We are different nations tied together by force. We should still be one country, but let everyone govern himself the way he likes. Are you hearing me? Let the Niger Delta have their oil. Let the East have their resources. Let the Yoruba people have their resources. Let the North have their resources. Let them manage their security. Give them state police. Let everybody guard his borders. Let everybody generate his economy. Why must you generate oil in the Niger Delta and take it to the North? Why must we generate IGR here, or the VATs, and take it to the North that generate nothing? The 10 key northern states have Sharia. Sharia says no to alcohol. Sharia says no to tobacco. But alcohol and tobacco is what give us VAT here. And you take the money from there to spend where you say you don't want, but you like the money. Fraud, unfairness, injustice.
Just found out something astonishing about the origin of Nigeria that shocked the hell out of me. Nigeria was never meant to be a country. It was something else entirely. In this video, I'm going to tell you what I discovered. Oh, and I want to acknowledge Burna Boy for bringing my attention to this in his song Another Story on his album African Giant. Thank you for inspiring this video, and all of you let Burna Boy know that he got to me, and now I'm sharing this information with you. The creation of Nigeria was never about democracy, never about Christianity. It was about money, business, and profit. None of it for us. Pay attention. The area now known as Nigeria was called the Slave Coast up to 1870. This was the point at which the British had stopped slave trading and moved on to palm oil as their primary commodity out of Nigeria. One of the main suppliers of palm oil was the Benin Kingdom, and you have to watch my video on one of the greatest African kings most of you have never heard of, Oba Ovoranwen. This is an important story for me personally because I'm from that region, so they are my people, and his fight with the British Empire over palm oil is one of the greatest stories of African colonial history. Anyway, everyone wanted palm oil, and especially the British. A man called George Goldie set up the United African Company in 1879, which was then changed to the National African Company. He structured the palm oil business in the Niger Delta region, and by 1884 he had a monopoly that the British could exploit. So in 1886, Goldie violated the agreement he had made with the chiefs and moved his operations into River Niger and Benue. The company was also renamed to Royal Niger Company. Goldie tricked the chiefs into signing unfair trade deals, giving Goldie exclusive rights to export palm oil instead of what the chiefs thought would be free trade. These contracts were written in English, a language we didn't understand, and based on laws that were not our own. This is similar to the land negotiations done with Native Americans in what is now known as the United States of America, where deals were done via contracts in English with laws that had nothing to do with the Native Americans. There was a meeting called the Berlin Conference in 1884 to 1885, set up by Germany's first Chancellor, Otto von Bismarck. This was where colonial powers discussed how to carve up Africa and structure trade across the pieces of our continent they would take. We were not part of these conversations. The best way to think of this is like the NBA draft. Guys were out there making bids between lunch breaks and spa sessions. At this conference, the Kingdom of Opobo was given to Britain. When King Jaja of Opobo tried to export his own palm oil, he was accused of obstructing commerce and then exiled. How crazy is that? And on his way home in 1891, he was poisoned with a cup of tea. Guys, I couldn't make this stuff up. The Jaja of Opobo's story made other chiefs wary of their deals with the British. King Koko of Nembe Brass was one of them. He tried to take down the Royal Niger Company and attacked the company headquarters in Akassa, Bayelsa on January 29, 1895. King Koko captured 60 white men and lost 40 of his own soldiers. He used the 60 hostages to demand he be allowed free trade, the agreement he believed he had with the British company. They refused and he killed 40 of his hostages. The British Royal Navy retaliated by leveling the city of Brass completely on February 20th, 1895. King Koko went into exile and the British not only took control of the palm oil he once had, but also fined the people of his kingdom £500 as well as confiscating their weapons. Tragically, King Koko committed suicide in exile in 1898 after being branded an outlaw by the British company that had taken his kingdom, palm oil, and reputation. The Royal Niger Company sold its territory to the British government for £865,000 in the late 1800s. This territory was known as Nigeria. In 1914, the Southern Protectorate and Northern Protectorate was combined by Lord Lugard, and like that, the Royal Niger Company was rebranded as a country which would gain independence on October 1st, 1960. And Lugard is a street in Nigeria that still exists today. The Royal Niger Company changed its name to the Niger Company Limited, and it was then acquired by Unilever. Unilever still operates in Nigeria to this day. And that, my brothers and sisters, is how Nigeria came to be. We have a long way to go to fix the country, but we won't ever have a hope and a solution to our problems if we don't know how they started. What I told you in this video is just a small part of the foundations that led to unrest, civil war, economic instability, and so forth. Remember, it's not about asking anyone else to fix this, or even wasting time blaming those we know caused and perpetuated it. This is about knowing our history. Nigeria was never a country we created. It was a company designed by colonizers for profit, and a lot of the infrastructure put in place for that siphoning of resources out of our land is still very much in place today. Crude oil simply replaced palm oil, and soon lithium may replace crude oil. Honestly, I feel angry not just for what happened to my ancestors, but for the fact that I wasn't taught about this in school in Nigeria.
Every 1st of October, my country celebrates independence. Okay. But how independent is our independence? Now, let's look at the type of independence that we have.
There's nothing to show.
Now, to start with, Nigeria was not even structured to be a country in the first place. Hell. Nigeria was established due to British business interests.
With the big
In fact, this geographical location that we call Nigeria today used to be known as the Slave Coast because it used to be a place where British merchants got their adequate supply of slaves in the 17th century. It was during that period that the famous Igbo landing happened somewhere in Georgia, where a group of Igbo slaves conspired to drown themselves rather than being sold into slavery. But that one is an issue for another day. So by 1870, Britain was the most industrialized country in the world.
You get it?
And their interest shifted from slaves to palm oil. because they needed a lot of palm oil as lubricant for their machines.
Continue.
And Nigeria had enough palm oil, especially in the Niger Delta region, down towards the eastern part. So a man known as George Goldie set up the United African Company, which later became the Royal Niger Company, for the aim of exporting palm oil from Nigeria to Britain. So there was no structure in the palm oil business then, and what this man wanted to do was to create a monopoly in the palm oil business.
Corruption.
So after promising our local chiefs that there was going to be free trade, he now tricked them into signing an agreement that gave the Royal Niger Company the exclusive right to export palm oil.
God will see us.
These leaders were deceived by the promises of free trade, and they signed an agreement that was written in English, which they didn't know what was contained inside.
Hell.
And King Jaja of Opobo was one of the leaders then. So around 1887-88, when Jaja of Opobo wanted to export his own palm oil, he was arrested and charged for obstructing commerce and was sent into exile.
Wickedness.
And while he was returning in 1891, he was poisoned with a cup of tea.
A cup of tea.
Now, the fate of Jaja of Opobo made other local leaders to realize what they were up against.
Yeah, maybe one.
And one of the local leaders then was King Koko of Nembe, who now formed an alliance trying to bring down the Royal Niger Company. He took his soldiers and attacked the headquarters of the Royal Niger Company, which is in today's Bayelsa. He abducted 60 British men and lost 40 of his soldiers. Now, he now gave the Royal Niger Company an ultimatum that they must give him the freedom to export his own palm oil before he can release his hostages. And the Royal Niger Company refused. So he killed 40 of the men in his hostage.
I could have killed a lot.
And as a result, the British Royal Navy attacked the Kingdom of Brass and leveled it. And King Koko went into exile as an outlaw. And just like the fate of Okonkwo in Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, he committed suicide in 1898. But because of the negative publicity around the war, that particular war, the Royal Niger Company decided to sell their territory, which is Nigeria, to the British government for £865,000.
What?
And 15 years later, in 1914, Lord Lugard amalgamated the Southern and Northern Protectorate and named it Nigeria.
You get it?
So Nigeria was not just a colony. Nigeria was more like a property.
Holy Ghost fire!
So Britain established their colonial rule while their trade was still going on. Meanwhile, that Royal Niger Company has been absorbed by Unilever, which is still in operation today.
We don't know why.
So the resources of Nigeria was very important to the British Empire, especially during the World War II. The export of palm oil, granite, cocoa, rubber, and all of that.
No problem.
And in the early 50s, when crude oil was discovered, interest in crude oil replaced the interest in palm oil.
That is not corruption.
And in that same period, the wave of independence has been sweeping across the world, including Africa. And most of British colonies were regaining independence. India got their own in 1948, Ghana in 1957. So the fact that Nigeria was going to get independence became inevitable.
We have to know who we are.
And then the father of African independence was Nnamdi Azikiwe. There was no doubt about it. He inspired a lot of freedom fighters in Africa, including Kwame Nkrumah. His newspaper then, the West African Pilot, which preached the anti-colonial message, was the most influential paper in the 1930s and 40s. In fact, his paper was so influential that a lot of people used it to learn how to read.
You get it?
And because he wanted financial autonomy from Britain, he established the African Continental Bank in 1940 and invited some notable Nigerians like Sir Louis Odumegwu Ojukwu to become a part of the board.
We have to.
And it was Zik of Africa and other individuals like Herbert Macaulay that led the National Congress of Nigerian Citizens, NCNC. And the British were terrified that these people, with their anti-colonial message and their pan-Africanism, if they are to take over power, their interest, their business interest in Nigeria may be in jeopardy. So they gave us the type of independence that suited their interest and not our own.
Photo.
On 1st of October 1960, Nigeria got independence with a British Governor General still in charge of the country.
For what? Why?
His name was James Robertson. It's just like your Oga that you have served for 7 years saying he has settled you, but you are still living inside his boys' quarter. It was now Sir Robertson that conducted our very first election with his allies. And that election was manipulated. And power was handed over to the Northern People's Congress, NPC, who were supposed to take power, dominate the country, and protect British interests.
That is not corrupt.
So, a conservative group who played very little part in Nigerians' independence were handed over power. That means the template for election rigging was handed over to us by our colonial masters from the very beginning. The confidence in genuine democracy was compromised at the birth of the country. So with this colonial manipulation in place, Nigeria became a place for petty squabble, ethnic tension and corruption. Elections were manipulated. The national census of 1964 was stage managed. The Western election crisis of 1965, judges and magistrates were now being influenced by political leaders, and the political leaders themselves were just tools to enforce a foreign business interest. Now a part of the country was now set up against other parts.
I don't want peace.
We now inherited a leadership structure with an inbuilt power struggle between the major ethnic groups.
Problems always.
The British understood our ethnic differences and they used it perfectly, because you know that when two brothers fight to death, a stranger inherits their father's properties. And this evil that was done to our country, they still found a way to smuggle it into our national anthem that they wrote for us. Even though tribe may differ, they now sarcastically added, "In brotherhood we stand."
It's not a lie.
And no wonder we did not stand in that brotherhood for long, because 6 years later the war has broke out. And with the onset of the war, our father, the Nigerian father, the colonial masters, to them it wasn't about whose right is being protected. To them it wasn't about who is right or who is wrong. To them it wasn't about the suffering of the masses. To them it was about keeping the country intact, irrespective of whose ox is being God. So they started supporting Nigeria. To them, the country must remain intact, even if it has to come at the price of 3 million innocent blood.